Welcome back. In this lesson, we're going to talk about the brush tool. Brush tool is the most useful drawing tool in Photoshop. Generally, Photoshop's known as an image editor, which there's a lot of power there, but it also has a range of versatile tools for painting and drawing, which allow you to create original artwork, as well as, editing and manipulating those images themselves. The brush tool is a multi-purpose tool, and it can emulate just about any type of drawing tool that you can imagine. Pencil, felt tip marker, pen, soft bristle brush, airbrush, just anything that you can think of. There's usually a way that the Photoshop brush tool can mimic that. So we'll select the brush tool and quickly take a look at the brush tool palette. And you can see there is a lot of stuff in here. These are all different brush presets that you can select from to start painting. For instance, I have a soft edge brush starting at 30 pixels. You can see it's kind of got a fuzzy edge there because it's soft. We'll go to much harder edge, and you can see this represented down here where it says hardness. The soft one has 0. Go to this one that has 100, and there's a much stiffer edge. There's a plethora of different things in here that you can use as a brush preset. I've got grass, and you can set that to various different options. You can space it out, and you can see below here in the preview that it'll show how often it'll paint these little grass images. I'm just holding the button down and it's painting them in there. I can change it so that it will change the angle and do 20. Now the grass is facing the other way. So there's a lot of different options and things that you can choose from in here. Scattering. Scattering will allow it to not just simply paint all in a line. If I increase the scatter, you can kind of see how now my grass will be all over the place, even though I'm painting down here. And so each one of these options has various different things that you can adjust for it. And then these different brush presets here that you can choose from as well. I'm going to close this, but I also want to show you that you can right click and get a mini version of these brush presets. So you don't actually have to open up the brush preset window, but simply right clicking will allow you to make some of those choices right here within this little mini window. Now, of course, the brush is painting black for me, but you can change that to any color you want by simply changing the foreground color. So we'll make it green, and I can paint some green grass now. So let's talk about some of the tool options that the brush tool has up at the top here. This first one is also the mini preset window that I just showed you by right clicking. Same options here. You can change the size of the brush. You can change which brush you're using. You can change the hardness. You can change the angle. You can change what type of tip. Here I'm painting with a brush, more like a brush tip. And we've got pens, markers, pencils, and you can download a lot of different brushes. There's people out there who make all kinds of different brush tips that you can use. So it's worth checking out what people have done out there, and then you can import them in for your own personal use. And you would do that by clicking on this little gear icon here and loading in the new brush. And this is how I got things like the grass or these leaves that I can paint on here. It's pretty neat. Okay, let's set it back here to a normal brush. And then the next option that we have is another way to open up the panel. Earlier I went to Window and clicked on Brush. You can also open it right there. And you'll get your full panel of brush presets. You can also, if you want to keep it out, you can add it into your dock and adjust the size. Or however you want, you can put it under a different one so that you don't have to take up so much room. And that's entirely up to you. I usually just use the right click one. That gets a lot of it done. And if I need to do a more complex brush setup, I'll just open the full palette with that. Okay. Then we have the brush mode. The brush mode allows you to essentially choose the mode ahead of time that you want it to paint. We're painting in normal right now, but I can choose, let's get a different color so we can see how that looks, and we'll do a kind of a dark purple or blue or whatever, and we'll choose color burn. Now, color burn, you can see nothing's happening as I paint right here because there's nothing underneath it. If I paint over, I'm doing a color burn over this existing stroke that I've done. If I choose multiply, now you can see I'm painting a stroke here. It just looks like the color I chose. But if I paint it over one of my other selections, it's using a multiply mode. And same for any of these other options. You can choose any of the options and see what those do for you. I do want to point out that I am painting all these on one layer, so it's kind of a destructive editing here. I can't, without going into the history palette, I can't go back and I can't move things around. But what that does is, with the brush mode, you have to be on the same layer in order for that effect to take place. I made another new layer over here, and I've got my brush still on overlay, but now I'm painting straight over the other layer, and you can't see that effect. In order to do that, I would have to come over here and choose overlay as the layer mode, and then it'll overlay it. The next option that we have is opacity. And opacity just allows you to control what level of opacity you want to paint at. I'll make another layer again, and I will paint, let's grab a different color just for the sake of making it easier to see what we're doing. Now I'm painting 100% opacity here. Let's change this down to, we'll just say 50% opacity. And we'll paint again. And now you can see that I'm painting strokes that you can see through with that opacity. The other way to do that kind of same thing as the mode, you can paint at 100% and then change the opacity of the layer itself down, and then you'll be able to see that we've got the same type of effect but on another layer where you're able to control it. After opacity, we have the pressure for opacity option. This is one of the options where it allows your stylus to control the opacity that you're painting. If you have it on, the more pressure you paint with, the higher the opacity. Next, we have flow. You can change the rate of flow for the paint or the ink or the color that's coming out of your stroke. At 100%, we'll change this back to normal. And at 100%, you can see that's my flow. We'll change it down to 10%. And you can see that it's not flowing nearly as smoothly. So at 100%, it's 100% even while you're painting. Decreasing the flow just means that it will not flow evenly while you're painting. The next option is the airbrush option. Airbrush is just what it sounds like. Airbrush is just like an airbrush. And I'm going to grab a different brush so that we can really kind of see what it does. So what you can see here, we'll put the flow back to 100% and turn the airbrush on. And then you can see as I'm painting, if I click once, it just kind of paints those on there. And as if I just hold the button down, it just builds the paint up. And it just keeps spraying as if I were holding down an airbrush trigger. And the last option we have is the pressure for size. Much like the pressure for opacity, pressure for size works with the tablet stylus. And the more pressure you have, the bigger your stroke is going to be. This kind of allows you to create natural looking strokes. Normally when you're drawing with a pen or a pencil, the beginning of your stroke has a little less pressure, the end of it has a little less pressure. You put some more pressure in spots where you want to darken and thicken your stroke. It works just like that. And that's all the options for the main brush tool. Let's clear that all off. Give ourselves a fresh new layer to talk about the pencil tool. The pencil tool is kind of a legacy tool. It's been around for a while. There's not as much use for it now as there used to be because the brush tool can be set to so many different variations, and you can essentially have your pencil tool in the brush tool as an option. And so what we can see here when we come out and look at the pencil tool palette, you've got all these same options here: the size, the hardness, the different brush presets. So in my mind, really, the pencil tool kind of can serve as a secondary brush if you want to have two different types of brushes that you're using, and you can swap between them without having to go and reset your brushes back and forth. Although you can make your own brush preset, so that's not too difficult either. But just know that, the pencil tool is essentially just another brush tool. And that's everything for the brush and pencil tools. Please let me know your thoughts, how you thought this lesson was, and we'll see you in the next one. Thank you.